In all projects, we need electrical installation. And how are we going to route the cables? Well, through the cable trays. This is the cable tray I mentioned it earlier. In German, it is called Kabeltrasse. This is very simple, the cable tray. As you can see, the tray doesn't reach the wall but stops about 10 or 15 centimeters before the wall. If you see the red label up there, it means that the sealant is fire resistant. Well, not completely fireproof, but it can withstand about half an hour to an hour. The same sealant is also applied to the cables to protect them. On average, trays are about 30 wide, sometimes even to 60 centimeters wide, depending on how many cables and what systems are being connected. Trays should have the ability to move up or down to avoid interference with other installations like water, gas, etc. Also important is to leave about 10 to 50 centimeters of space at the top to easily manipulate the cables, as in this case where the cables go upwards. This also makes maintenance easier and quicker. Yes, that's all great, but how do we plan if we are in 2D or 3D planning office? Well, let me show you. Hello, my name is Paulo Rivers for the channel, and today I'm going to talk to you a bit more about electrical installation, specifically the cabling of the cable trays. For this, I showed you earlier what it looks like on site, how the cables looks, and now this for the planning. For example, in Revit, when you're modeling, how it's done and what should you take into account. So let's go and I will show you in Revit. Having our project open again, I have my architecture tab, but I'm going to switch to the system tab. In German, you can find it as Gebäudetechnik, building technology, just in case. And in the subsection, we go to the electrical part. Here we see with our CTR, which I mentioned it earlier. If you put your mouse on top, you will see a little description. In German, it's Kabeltrasse, the same of cable tray. Not a big deal. So I can also access it with the command or by pressing C and T on the keyboard, and I get several options. In this case, I can draw one that is 300 millimeters wide by 100 millimeters high at a height of 2500 millimeters, and we will draw it at the same level. I already have a filter to make it more visible in green. It won't modify it much in terms of the cut. We will see that in a moment. The advantage compared to pipes is that here you can control, for example, the width. I can put a tray that is 250 millimeters wide, but it's not available. I can either add it to the catalog right away, or I can add it directly and it will adjust accordingly. Now I am not in a section view, but I will quickly switch so that we can also see in the height. The height I have is 100 millimeters, and by default, a 60 millimeter option wouldn't be available, which is what I want, so I will enter it manually and it still adjusts. Now, what would be correct? The correct thing would be to go back into the system tab, go to the electrical section, and in this small window arrow for electrical settings, we can also access it with E and S, and here we have the general settings for the cabling of the trays. In this case, here in the subsection, we have the diameters, the sizes. We see that it only gives me the sizes for the width. I would have to enter the 250 millimeters I wanted here, so that in this and future projects it will generate the 250 millimeters. I will load it. And another thing to consider, as you saw in the image I showed you earlier, we need to leave some space before and after the wall. In other words, we need to cut our element. How do we cut it? Very easily. With this tool, with each S or split element, depending, we will cut and remove this small section that was generated. Now we have two trays on each side. We separate them easily. It should be about 10 centimeters. This also depends on the project's conditions, but we can adjust to be 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters. Check what unit you are working in. In this case, I will try with 100, and it looks like it's correct. I will try the same on the other side, but if I want to really be sure, I can open my unit window. On the keyboard, I press U and N. I will see that I'm working in millimeters. Therefore, if I enter 100 here, I will need to understand, well, in this case 50, I will need to know that it's 50 millimeters or 5 centimeters. What else should be considered? What else should be considered? Now, if I want to continue drawing my tray, I will make another example. And suddenly I go upwards. Normally, you will need to leave a maximum distance. This I need to repeat depends on the project, depending how much space and margin we have, but ideally, from the wall, it should be about again 10 centimeters. Others, if you have more space, maybe 15 centimeters. Now, in very tight cases, I have also seen that 5 centimeters is enough from the wall. This also depends on the calculations and the number of cables going into the tray and what other systems or installations are sharing the channel or the room or the space, wherever. What else should we consider? That there are not only horizontal trays, but also at some point they need to go up or down. They need to make adjustments. For this, I will explain it with a section view. Let's go to this section that I already had created. Now that I have my two sizes, let's say we have a big difference. Let's say we have a big level difference here. Of course, it won't be visible in the plain view, but here we have this tray that needs to go up and then pass through the wall. Of course, as we can see, we have a level difference between two trays. So in order to solve that, I'll need to continue this tray on the left, this time going up. And as soon as I do that, a new accessory part of the cable tray is coming up, so I can go in that direction. And I can do this many times as is required. I can just split the section, make it shorter, longer, can go down, I can go up, I can just reduce this size, and you can see, can connect the other trays, also make it shorter, connect the cable trays. And on the plan view, I see still the difference, the new accessories. Of course, on my section view, I still need to do that with all the remaining walls. I mean, cut it, move the cable tray, try to leave specifically the 10 or 50 centimeters required. Also set a measurement if needed, and so on. What do you think about this small introduction to electrical installations and Revit? How it looks on site, and so it's not just theoretical planning but also seen in practice. So I will see you in the next video. Leave me your comment and I will see you so you can continue perfectly mastering your Revit skills, make better projects and be much more efficient. So give it a like, don't forget to subscribe or share it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.